I keep getting this question over and over and over again. I thought, let's revisit this with even more information than before. So it's an age-old question. Yes, we've taken it on in part in the past. It's time to revisit it because so many people are asking for it. So does a narcissistic person know they're narcissistic? And the answer to that is a very unsatisfying-ish. It's not quite black or white, and there are sort of these levels of knowing, right? So let's kind of take a look at this by subgroup of how well the narcissistic person kind of knows. First is that group of narcissistic people who actually have zero insight into this and genuinely think that they are nice people. This is not a small group, by the way. There is a pretty substantial subgroup of narcissistic folks who walk through the world and actually and genuinely think they are nice. They can quite often be communal narcissistic folks who think they're saving the world, but it can also be part of that classical phenomenon of narcissistic folks who overestimate their empathy as well as their positive impact on people. They think they're great, right? So when these people get called out for their behavior, they're genuinely surprised. It can feel like an ugly gaslighted twilight zone with these folks and almost delusional. But yes, they do think that they are nice, and they have zero insight that their behavior is narcissistic or unkind or harmful to other people. Now, second, we also have the group that doesn't really know they're narcissistic. They may not think of themselves, though, as nice people, but they genuinely don't think that there's a problem with their behavior. So they aren't quite as awful as the first group, who thinks they're great, right? This second group, they don't think of themselves as nice, but they also don't think of themselves and their behavior as a problem, which feels confusing and gross. They represent the sort of classical narcissistic pattern of having very little self-reflective capacity, but they aren't so uninsightful or delusional as that first group that thinks they're great. But they also don't think of themselves as bad, and they definitely don't think of themselves as narcissistic. Then there's a third group of narcissistic folks. These are the people who know that they aren't always nice, but they have some complex theory of how, I just engage in straight talk. I call it like it is. This is who I am. I speak my mind. And if you don't like it, then that's your problem, right? These are the folks who feel entitled to just be how they are, and any problems with their behavior are your fault for being too sensitive or too thin-skinned. These are the narcissistic people who may not think they're nice, but they also don't think of themselves as narcissistic, and they also know that they're not always nice people. Then there's a fourth group. These are the narcissistic people who simply do not care, because they're so insulated by money or success or fame or something else that makes them tremendously out of touch. These are just your really ultra entitled people, and they have very little insight into their behavior and how it affects other people. They kind of just always get away with stuff because of their power. They have people who clean up after them, and they really do view most people around them as functionaries, people in their service, so they just don't care. These are people who may actually be able to keep it together a little bit better with people whom they consider to be at their level. But to everyone else in the world, they behave monstrously. And so they just don't care. It is almost meaningless to weigh in on whether this group gets it or not. They may sort of shrug if you were to tell them that they're narcissistic because they kind of don't care. And they're just going to keep doing what they're doing and get away with it. And they're so insulated from the world that they can always buy more supply and new people. So even if one spouse gets burned out, a new one will easily be acquired. If a new team gets burned out, a new team can easily be acquired. And then there's the fifth group, the people who actually know they're narcissistic. And they may actually not even love it about themselves. In fact, they don't like it. They are able to see how their narcissism, their behavior really is wrecking their lives, and they may be those rare unicorns that are trying to get help, but they still keep making mistakes and may even get frustrated that people are asking too much of them. there's a sixth group. And who's that? Those are the people who know they are narcissistic. They know it, and they don't care. They may even go so far as to say, yeah, so what if I'm a dick? I'm a richer dick than you. Or they may rant on about, I'm not doing all of this sensitivity BS. You have to be tough to be in this business, and that's how I am. I'm tough. I don't care what anyone thinks. Now, we may see this kind of callous exterior in more malignant narcissistic people, where they are more defiant in terms of simply not caring how other people view them. These are the narcissistic folks, this group, who behave badly, feel entitled to their behavior, and then hire publicists and crisis management companies and attorneys and throw money at it to clean it up. So, the basic kind of math on all of this, in these six groups as it were, is the more a person, a narcissistic person, knows that their behavior is a problem and has some awareness that they might be narcissistic, the greater the likelihood that they might be able to make some change. And that group, winner, group 5. The group that knows and doesn't like their narcissism and it sees the messes that it's causing in their lives. That group still struggles when they are stressed or disappointed or don't have enough supply, and they can get quite brittle and lash out and be angry and reactive, but they may still sometimes apologize. I wish it was as simple as do they know or do they not know they're narcissistic. There are levels of knowing, and the likelihood of anything shifting in your relationship, anything improving in your relationship, or even just how bad it feels may relate to what that other person knows and how they feel about it. And at some level, it doesn't mean a thing if they get that they're narcissistic or not. It really comes down to how they treat you. And in general, I think we can bet on the likelihood that it isn't going to be good. So when you wonder, do they get it? Different levels. Sometimes you meet that level 5 person. I've met that, group 5 person. I've met that person. I've met them in my practice. And I see it, and it's actually kind of a bumpy path because it's a terrible way to have to go through life. But I've also seen the others who know they're narcissistic and don't care. And I've seen the ones who walk around the world saying, I'm the nicest guy there is, right? And you're thinking, you really believe this? Delusional. So again, it's not that simple, but it can help to understand that there are subgroups here. It can also illuminate why you may be having a very different experience in a narcissistic relationship than someone else. Hope that was helpful. Would love to have you share your thoughts on this and what group the narcissist you know is in. Thanks again.